In today's video, we will learn the basics of numbers. We will look at the types of numbers that exist. And specifically, we will look at the natural numbers, odd and even numbers, positive and negative numbers, and prime and composite numbers. So let's go. Okay, start counting. Ready? Go. You probably started off by saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. You kept counting the numbers one after the other. These counting numbers are also known as natural numbers. If I can count it, it is a natural number. That was easy. And now, starting at the number 2, skip every other number and say the number that comes up. Ready? Go. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and so on. Now start with the number 42 and skip every other number. Go. 42, 44, 46, 48, 50, and so on. What do you notice about the last digit in every one of these numbers? In every one of these red numbers, what do you notice that is the same about the last digits? They all end with the digits 2, 4, 6, 8, or 0. And that is why we call these types of numbers even numbers. And let's check the even numbers by dividing by 2, and we will see something very special when we divide even numbers by 2. What if we divided 6 by 2? Well, that's very simple. We know 6 divided by 2 is 3. But let's look at the long division. 6 divided by 2. 2 into 6 goes 3 times. 3 times 2 is 6. When we subtract, we're left with 0. Even numbers have no remainder when you divide by 2. The remainder is always 0 when you divide an even number by 2. Now, let's start with the number 1 and skip every other number and tell me what the number is. Go. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, and so on. Now start with the number 31 and count every other number. Go. 31, 33, 35, 37, 39, and so on. Now what do you notice about the last digit in every one of these red numbers? By now you can see that they all end with the digits 1, 3, 5, 7, or 9. These are the odd numbers. Now let's take a look at what happens when we divide an odd number by 2. If I said, what is 7 divided by 2? Well, we know that 7 is not in the 2 times table, so that's not very easily worked out. But let's look at it using long division. 7 divided by 2. 2 into 7 goes 3 times. 3 times 2 is 6. When we subtract, we're left with 1. Odd numbers have a remainder of 1 when we divide by 2. Any odd number that you take, when you divide it by 2, you will always get a remainder of 1. Now it's quiz time. Is this number even or odd? You have 5 seconds to figure it out. 25. Time's up. The answer is it's odd. 25 ends with the digit 5, and we know odd numbers end with the digits 1, 3, 5, 7, or 9. Now number 2. 92. Time's up. 92 is even. The last digit is 2, and even numbers end with the digits 2, 4, 6, 8, or 0. Number 3. 130. Even though it's a bigger number, we look at the last digit, which is 0, and we know even numbers end with the digits 2, 4, 6, 8, or 0. So 130 is an even number. Number 4. 411. An even bigger number, and even though it begins with the digit 4, we always look at the last digit. In this case, it's a 1, and odd numbers end with the digits 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, so 411 is odd. Now let's look at the number line. Let's find 0. We can see that it's right in the middle of the number line. There are numbers to the left and there are numbers to the right. The numbers to the left are smaller than 0. These are the negative numbers. You can see that they have negative signs at the left of every one of the digits. Now look at the numbers to the right of the 0. They are the numbers that are larger than 0, and we call those positive numbers. For example, minus 53 is a negative number. We can see the negative sign at the very left. That tells us it's a negative number. That also tells us that it is less than 0. Look at the number plus 25. It has a plus sign in front, which indicates that it is a positive number, but positive numbers don't have to have the plus sign. So the number 25, even though it doesn't have a plus sign, we know it is positive because it does not have a negative sign. And 25, being positive, we know is greater than 0 because it is on the right-hand side of the 0. So let's see if you can determine which one of these numbers are positive or negative. Minus 97. That was easy because we see the negative sign. Negative numbers have a negative sign, and minus 97 is negative. Number 2, 36. Time's up. 36 is positive. Even though we don't see a positive or a plus sign in front of it, we know that numbers without a sign, they are all positive. Number 3, minus 11. Negative. Every time we have a minus sign at the left of a number, we know that number is negative. And lastly, plus 93. By now you've figured out the plus sign gave it away. This is a positive number when we see a plus sign at the left. Now, how can we multiply two numbers to get 6? Let's think about that. We know 1 times 6 is 6. What other way can we get 6 by multiplying two numbers? Well, 2 times 3 is 6. And so the factors of 6 are the numbers that we started out with and multiplied them to give us our answer. And in this case, 1, 2, 3, and 6 are all factors of 6 because we had to use them to multiply to give us 6. How many factors does the number 6 have then? If we counted the circles, we can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 factors. The number 6 has 4 factors. And a number that has more than 2 factors, we call that a composite number. Now let's look at how we can multiply two numbers together to get the number 7. And if we think about it, there aren't very many ways that we know. We know that 1 times 7 is 7. And if we try to think of another way to multiply two numbers to get 7, we can't figure it out. And that's because there is no other way. The factors of 7 then are the numbers that we multiply together to give us 7. And they are 1 and 7. And how many factors does the number 7 have then? We can see that the number 1 and 7, that's 2 factors. And a number that has only 2 factors, and they are 1 and the number itself, in this case, those numbers are known as prime numbers. Now, before we go on, let's clear something up. How can we multiply two numbers to get the number 1? Well, right away you probably said 1 times 1 is 1. Is there another way that we can multiply two numbers together to give us 1? I can't think of any. And so the factors of 1 are the numbers that we started off with to give us 1. And in this case, even though there are 2 1s, the only number that I see there is the number 1. How many factors then does the number 1 have? The answer is 1. There is only one factor of the number 1, which is 1. The number 1 has only one factor, and therefore, as a result of that, it is not a prime number. We said prime numbers have 2 factors, 1 and itself. The number 1 only has one factor, and therefore it is not a prime number. And so let's look at the number 2. How can we multiply two numbers to get 2? 1 times 2 is 2. and that's it. So the factors of 2 are 1 and 2. Now, how many factors is that? How many factors does the number 2 have? We can see that there are 2, 1 and 2. And we said earlier that prime numbers have 2 factors of 1 in itself, and a number that only has 2 factors, 1 in itself, we call a prime number. And so therefore 2 is a prime number, and 2 is the first prime number. So 1 is not a prime number. The very first prime number is the number 2. And now it's quiz time. Is this number prime or composite? 12. You have 5 seconds. The answer is composite. 12 has more than 2 factors. As a matter of fact, 12 has factors of 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. There are 6 factors. And so therefore 12 is a composite number. Question 2, 11. You have 5 seconds. The answer is prime. The only way we can multiply 2 numbers together to get 11 is 1 times 11. And so therefore it only has 2 factors, making 11 prime. Number 3, 5. Time's up. 5 is a prime number because the only way we can multiply 2 numbers to give us 5 is 1 times 5. Therefore 5 only has 2 factors, 1 in itself, making it prime. And number 4, 9. Be careful. The answer is composite. Sometimes we're tempted to say 9 is a prime number because it is odd. But 9 has more than 2 factors. It has 3 factors, 1, 3, and 9. Therefore, it cannot be prime since it has more than 2 factors. It is composite. And now you've solved the mystery of the different types of numbers that exist. Well done.